Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show, Career Startup Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight world class Asian entrepreneurs, C suite executives, and innovators who provide insights from their personal journey to inspire you. And this is your host, Priyanka Komala. We are here with another fabulous episode with an amazing South Asian entrepreneur. But before I talk more about who my special guest, whom you're seeing on the screen, is, a quick reminder to subscribe to us by following me, Priyanka Komala, and a Career Startup Leadership Podcast page on LinkedIn for your LinkedIn Live notifications. We're also on YouTube, Twitter, and your favorite podcast streaming platforms. So give us a like, follow us, subscribe, leave us a rating to continue to let us know how this podcast is inspiring you to be a better version of yourself. And as a special giveaway, we're doing our 12 days of Christmas giveaways. So follow me on LinkedIn. We have our first book giveaway by Cynthia Pong on Don't Stay in Your Career Lane, out for grabs. So look out for my post and go ahead and put in a comment and your name for a lucky draw. And it closes on Monday, so feel free to put in your entry before then. All right, our special guest for today is Harinee Sampath. Hi, Harinee. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Priyanka. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So Harinee is the founder of a brand called Prayani. She's also University of Michigan Ross School of Business alumni. Go Blue. So proud of having somebody from my alumni network on my show. So with Prayani, which is Raita Yogurt Dips, a very special brand that Harinee is focused on. And I'm going to talk more about her entrepreneurial journey, the idea behind the brand Prayani, and how she's trying to balance both lives as an entrepreneur, as a full-time, busy techie as well, and a lot of interesting things about brand refresh and her roadmap for 2021. A lot of interesting aspects that I want to discuss with you, Harinee. But before then, how is Georgia treating you?
Georgia is great. It's sunny. It's I do unfortunately like it a little bit better than Michigan. I'm glad we do get the occasional snow, which is nice. And I'm glad it's occasional.
That's awesome. So I'm going to delve first into your entrepreneurial streak. Tell us how you felt you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Is it something that the University of Michigan put the spark in you?
No, I actually joined the University of Michigan because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what type of entrepreneur I was going to be. I always assumed it was going to be in tech because that's where my career had been for the most part. And so the whole food startup idea was, came from left field, but there was always, I think, a part of me that wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think even back in 12th grade, I said I wanted to be a business person. So it's just something I had wanted to do for a long time.
That's awesome. So how do you see yourself when somebody says you're a foodie entrepreneur?
How do I see myself? It's very hard to see myself, actually. Different people tell you different things, and I think it's a little bit based on where they're coming from too. I remember, for example, when initially my family was not happy with the idea of, because for 5 years I did leave the technology workforce entirely to start up Prayani and get it to a certain point. So at that point, my family was not very happy with it, as you can imagine with most Indian families. So, they saw me in one way. And then, of course, I got all this adulation from school, from Ross Business School, for actually moving forward with the idea and taking it to fruition and getting the product out on store shelves. I think and then just running the business itself along with my family, I think, has just kept me very humble, because there's so much that I've been learning, and there's so many things that can go wrong, and I get that aspect of things as well.
I'm so glad you've shared some of your struggles trying to convince your family that your path is something that is very close to your heart. And the fun thing I love about you, Harinee, is that as an immigrant to the US, you've brought a lot of culture and history to America, at the same time following your passions too.
Mm-hmm. That was definitely one of the things that made this idea most interesting. I mean, bringing a part of my culture and heritage into America, which is kind of my adopted home, country at this point. So being able to do that was always the fascination, or that's what I wanted to do. So I'm really happy at the opportunity to be able to do that. Again, it's what they teach you in business school is ideas are a dime a dozen. So this is one of the ideas I've had, and I'm glad I've been able to move it forward to a point where it's starting to come true.
That's awesome. And to our listeners out there, Harinee is an amazing seasoned entrepreneur. So we have an exclusive giveaway where you get a chance to get a 30-minute free mentoring session with Harinee herself. So drop in a hello and the country that you're tuning in from if you're watching it live or on replay. And here's your chance to win an exclusive mentoring session with Harinee. So Harinee, tell us this. With the yogurt raita dips, how do you bring that unique flavor? Because there are a lot of other products in the market, primarily Mediterranean or American-based products, right? So how do you differentiate yourself with Prayani?
So obviously it's the flavor. It starts with the flavor. Even the texture, I think, would be a little bit different from your tzatziki. If you think about it, the tzatziki, which is the Mediterranean cucumber dip, is probably the closest in terms of the flavor profile, but it's still very different. Even people who like tzatziki or are familiar with it absolutely loved our cucumber raita, because we actually used pudina, so the mint from India, instead of using your spearmint or a local, another type of mint. And then the coriander is another spice that people are not as familiar with. Our dhania powder is not something that Americans are very used to. Cumin, they're a little bit more familiar with. Cilantro there. So it was a combination of things where they're familiar with a few of the flavors, and then add on a couple of elements of the flavor profile that they're unfamiliar with, which is what made it very interesting for them, I think.
That's pretty cool. We have a couple of live listeners who are tuning in, so let's go ahead and acknowledge them as well. We have Ketaki Vaidya, who's from India. Hi, Ketaki. Welcome to the show. And please drop in a question or a comment for Harinee as well. Ketaki is a personal branding expert from India. We have Satya, who says, hi, Priyanka. Hi, Satya. Welcome again to the show. All right. So what kind of flavors do you have? Do you have like different types of raita dips that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, we have a cucumber with mint and cilantro. There is a tomato with cumin and coriander, and a carrot with cumin and coriander. They're still very different. The tomato adds a little bit of tanginess, and then the carrot is a little bit sweeter. It's a little bit more spicy than the tomato as well. So they're kind of three different, a mild, a medium, and a hot, and then just different flavors, even though they have some similar spices. So those are what we have currently. And we have a couple of others potentially planned for the future as well. I personally am excited about potentially replacing. I think America's, had a lot of the French onion dip. I think it's time for the Indian onion dip, if you will.
French onion dip is my favorite, so I'm looking forward to your product on the shelf.
Cool. And I'm looking forward to bringing it on shelf. Yep.
So what's your favorite of all the three flavors that you have currently?
Oh, it's for the most part has been tomato, and then there, I do like the cucumber. It's just mild and refreshing. A lot of people love the cucumber, but my personal favorite, I would have to say, most of the time, if you ask me, it would be the tomato.
That's awesome. Tangy tomato. Why not?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you had a lot of convincing, your South Asian parents and family that, what you're doing is something that you really enjoy doing. But what are some challenges that you faced once you were into the market, doing the research and finally putting the product on the shelves of these grocery stores?
Yeah, actually, so there's one thing that we learn. One thing I learned as a food entrepreneur is getting on the shelf is less than half the battle, right? Getting it off the shelf is that's where the actual challenge starts. Even though it felt quite challenging getting to the point where we got it on the shelves. In the early stages, it was around making sure we got the right shelf. We got the right shelf life. We needed enough shelf life, so it was able to sit on the shelf. So we were able to get it about 8 weeks. There was a lot of trial and error, talking to friends. One of my friends is a microbiologist. She was able to give me some ideas that we use. There's just so much of trial and error that went into that. And we did about 5 trial runs in the commercial kitchen, and then finally went to production and then sold at farmers markets, got on local store shelves. And getting on local store shelves, which Michigan has a few of, is relatively easy. And then we did a lot of demos. And I say we because it was me, but my mom actually eventually kind of came along for the ride. She was visiting from India, and she would come with me for almost every single demo. And it was amazing how I would hear from so many people that she was amazing at sales and marketing. And it was very interesting to see that happen. After that, her initial reaction, she's personally told me she was like crying almost every day for a month after I started the business.
Well, it's so glad that your family has seen your success and your continued success as we march into 2021 as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
So how did it feel when you were standing out there, giving your product out to customers and waiting for their reaction? Tell us that first experience.
Oh, I was so nervous because until that point, actually, a lot of the market research we did at school. We won a few awards, grants as part of, there's a Zell-Lurie Institute at the Ross Business School, which focuses on entrepreneurs and helps entrepreneurs through. So I had won a couple of grants and awards through market research that my team and I had done. And so we were fairly confident going in that this was something that an American consumer wanted. But nobody, it's like when people say that on a survey is one thing. Are they willing to put their money where their mouth is, even if it's $5 per tub? That was what I was nervous about. So, but the initial reaction at farmers markets was amazing. The kind of feedback we got, people were emotional trying the product. Just very positive feedback at farmers markets where we would sell out all the time. So I think that was very encouraging to know that there was a market out there and people were interested in buying the product. And not buying the product is one thing, for the first time and the only time. What I was looking for was a repeat purchase, which was also there. People would come back multiple times. In fact, on our website, that's Prayani.com, you'll see recipes that we've listed. And I didn't come up with any of those recipes. I would just ask customers what they were using our product for. And they told me, hey, I put it on my chicken. Hey, it's on my salmon. I make a salad with this. And so pretty much all those recipes are were ideas from our customers. So it was amazing to see that reaction. Definitely, it was great validation.
That's such an amazing story, right? Like the first recognition that you get is a validation for all the struggles that you go through to launch your product. Now, who has been your target demographic? Is it primarily South Asians or it's primarily Americans? What's your take there?
We started out with Americans for the most part, because again, my vision was to make South Asian product mainstream. So from that perspective, our target market was your average American. And then to what we found at farmers markets was well, there was a lot of women, obviously, anywhere from 35 to 55, 60, who absolutely loved the flavors. Of course, you have to love the flavors. And then they were looking for the health benefits in the product, which was, just that it's lighter than your average sour cream based dip. They were sometimes bored with your, standard hummus and maybe tzatziki. So they liked the flavor profile a lot. And then a lot of women coming back from work around 4:30 or so, they were looking for a healthier snack before they even got to dinner or made dinner, and there were not a lot of options out there for that. So they found this as a good way to get veggies and just do a veggie dip with the raita, and then they enjoyed it, and it was relatively low calories and healthier than any other dips out there.
It's amazing to see a power snack that's healthy and it's flavorful and it's different from your regular store brands.
Yeah.
Now, on that note, I'm going to share a couple of our comments from our live listeners. Thanks all for tuning in. And remember, do continue putting in your questions. One lucky winner is going to win a free mentoring session with Harinee as part of our giveaway on this episode. So we have Supriya, who says, yay, Harinee, so cool. So I think Supriya is part of your network. And we have Ketaki Vaidya who says, "Hey Harini, it's great to see you here. I've followed your journey and I'm excited to know more about your work, including the support that you get from your 3-year-old. Are
He's
you open to sharing? Are you open to sharing some of those? What do kids think about you?"
Yeah. I have a now he's 8, so it's been 5 years since we started, and he's 8 now, and it used to be very interesting. He would come into stores while I was doing demos. He was probably, my biggest fan, wanted to try everything out, which is kind of interesting those times when you want him to keep away from the food, right? So, in terms of thank you, Ketaki. I didn't that's it's amazing you've been following my journey. I So in terms of my work, I guess if you had any more specifics, it would be interesting. But I guess in terms of my work as an entrepreneur, it's been a lot of support from my family for sure. I've told you about my mother who came with the demos. I couldn't have done what I did without the support. Eventually, right? Again, while there was some initial trepidation about me following this journey, I mean, there's a lot of times I've had to get up at 4 a.m. On Saturday morning, go do because Saturdays is the farmers market, so you go there, set up your tent or set up your table by 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So that's that part of the work. There's a lot of I guess it takes a lot of time away from the family, which you can't do without the support from your family for sure. So that's just one example, but the numerous times that I've been away from family, just doing demos in the stores or at the farmers markets, or traveling. I've been to multiple. I've been to so many places within the US looking for a co-packer, which is to scale up the production of our product, because we were making it at a commercial kitchen for a long time. And so I've been to the middle of Kansas, middle of Wisconsin, upstate New York. So, just being away and doing all that, I couldn't have done that without support from my family. I've had my father-in-law come in for stretches at a time, cook for the family, my husband and my son, or my parents, they come rotate from India. And again, I think work cannot be mentioned without support from the family.
That's amazing, and it's always nice to continue seeing your growth as you're scaling up in 2021. So tell us what's in your roadmap as part of 2021. I understand you're going through a brand refresh as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as far as 2021, so we are finally at a point where we have identified a co-packer that we are working with. So a co-packer is a manufacturer at scale for the product, because in the dairy industry, it's just the equipment runs into millions of dollars sometimes, at the very least a minimum a million. So when we started at the commercial kitchen, which gave us the low volume, but also very hard to scale up. So after all the travel I did through parts of the country, finally the co-packer happens to be in Michigan, but they're a brand new facility. They weren't there when we first started, and so they're coming up to speed on some of their certifications. So as they do that, and then we are in the process of a kind of a complete brand refresh. Some of the things that we identified with our last branding, which didn't quite work on the shelf. It was great on paper, it was great on the computer, didn't quite work on the shelf as well as we would have liked. So doing that refresh. So we're taking a bit of a pause right now to be able to get the certification in place, get the branding in place, and then move forward for next year, being able to scale up beyond Michigan and do it kind of the right way.
And some of our listeners are curious about how you coined the name Prayani and what does it stand for?
Yeah, Prayani means traveler. It's not a very, I guess, a romantic word, if you will, but the origin for this was when I was doing demos in the stores as well as talking to consumers at farmers markets, there was a common theme that I saw with a lot of the people that I was talking to, and pretty much all of them would mention that they love to travel. And it didn't have to be that they had come to or gone to India, right? It could be anywhere in the world. It could be, it could be South America, it could be Europe, but just that sense of adventure in them to want to travel, that was a common theme that I saw in our consumers. So Prayani is Tamil for traveler, and it's essentially, um, yeah, of course, we went through the whole, my family and I came up with 100, 200 names, vetted out quite a few, but this kind of stood out. And whenever I did talk to a few people, and this was the one that was the most, I guess, uh, catchy, or the one that stood out for most people. So that's how we came up with the name.
Now that when I look back at the name, as somebody who comes from the same place that you hail back in India, I can totally resonate with it. But at the same time, it's much more catchy. There's some curiosity to the name.
Yeah.
And now when you understand the meaning, it's like you're traveling into this, into this world of different flavors.
Yes.
So it's nice to hear that analogy as well.
Yeah.
We have another question from Aishwarya Varma. It says, hi, Priyanka and Harinee. Hi, Aishwarya. Welcome to the show. Are you looking to expand on flavors or into other categories? What do you have to say over there?
Yes, for sure. One of the reasons we haven't done it so far is we've had challenges scaling up. But I was explaining to Priyanka earlier that for sure, I think it's time for the Indian onion dip. The French onion dip is still by far the most sold, I guess, dip in America. And hoping we can, kind of start to replace that, or give it a good fight at least. As far as other categories, that's also definitely in, kind of planned. But there is one way to think for me, and I know different people would do this different ways. The category expansion, I think, has to come after you've established your brand in one particular category or for one particular product. So my intention is to be able to do that before expanding into other categories. And for sure, I mean, the company itself, when we founded it, it was about bringing healthier, better for you foods from South Asia to the world, essentially. So that's going to be the theme. What are some of the everybody knows your tandoor chicken or your curry, or and there's a few different products like that in the market today. But how can we not necessarily spin? There are already very healthy products that we have that are also flavorful, that I think kind of need to be given their chance too. So that would be the theme of the other categories we go into.
That's pretty cool. The French onion dips as well as the chips, that's my favorite. So I'm looking forward to what your category expansion would look like in a couple of years down the lane. So congratulations again for all these small milestones that you're making towards a better category expansion as well.
Thank you.
All right. So you have a full-time job and you're an entrepreneur. How do you handle both of these different facets of life apart from motherhood as well? What's one advice would you give for us?
Don't try to do it yourself. I think that's a standard theme that's going to be in my thing, right? You will need support from your family. You will need support from your teammates. So from the business standpoint, by the time, so I did a focus on the business for about 4 years before taking on a full-time job. It just needed that focus to get it to a point that we did. And then once I moved to Georgia, I did start this full-time job. But by then, I had a team lead who was producing the product, who I completely trusted, would work with the team to ship out product as the orders came in. So I could completely rely on her and the team to do that. And it took some training, took a few different, it took some time to get there, right? So there was that. And then from the family front, of course, support from the family. So I would definitely say don't try to do everything yourself. And that would be my top, advice.
Especially during these pandemic times, right? Everybody's looking for support from the community.
Yes.
Now, two things that I'm interested in seeing is how has this COVID pandemic affected your sales?
Yeah, it's actually definitely impacted our sales. One of the things that is has been, and we're primarily in Michigan. Michigan has been hard hit. If you have followed, the state, and we're all. I mean, funnily enough, just before it really hit hard was when we transitioned to the co-packer. So it's not just sales, but even from a production standpoint, they were going through their challenges. They couldn't, there were other certifications that they needed to go through. So they shipped once, then they had some challenges. So they were certification production issues. So our distributor kept ordering and we couldn't fulfill those orders because there were production challenges. So it's hit us in multiple ways, because of which and then we couldn't sell, because of that. So it's definitely hit us in multiple ways. It was some stressful times this year as we went through that process, for sure. So it's not just impacted sales, but everything has slowed down because of that.
Right. There are multiple ripple effects, right? Especially as a small business entrepreneur. Now, the second aspect I wanted to delve into is your business model from a revenue standpoint. Is it bootstrapped? Are you looking for investors?
Yeah, so far we've been mostly bootstrapped. We did raise a small amount last year, but at this point, I am in the process of raising money. I think it's come to the point where that you need. I've always known that there would be a point that you would have to raise, but I pushed it to, because I was still learning a lot of things along the way. I didn't want to make mistakes with other people's money. I wanted to be at a point where I knew exactly what I needed to do when I got that money. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, taking all the lessons learned from the last 5 years, and then moving forward with the money raise. But one thing I think I've realized is that every scale you might still make mistakes, right? So there's still, I'm not saying I've learned everything that there is to learn. So there's still a possibility that I'll make mistakes. But again, hopefully it's been reduced from everything that I've learned over the last 5 years. I was completely new to the food industry. So that was there was a lot of like a learning curve for me as well. Just even networks, getting to know a lot of people. So you can tap into and ask for advice wasn't there when I first started, and now I've been able to develop that.
That's very impressive. I'm already thinking of a couple of guests on my show who could help you as part of your investment and being part of the food business. So I'll connect you with them offline after
That
the
would be
show.
fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, that's the best part about the podcast. It's about real people, real conversations, and how we create this cohesive community where we can help each other and learn from each other.
Yeah, thank you, Komala. This is great. I mean, Priyanka, this is great.
That's awesome. So we have an interesting question from Ketaki. As you're looking at expanding your categories and bringing in more investors, have you thought about presenting yourself on Shark Tank?
Yeah. Of course. Yes, I think almost every entrepreneur in the US thinks of Shark Tank at some point. And when they were doing, I guess, a preview or trying to shortlist people when I was in Detroit once, and I made the first cut, didn't make the second cut where they asked for a video pitch after that. I think in retrospect, that was a good thing for them for that time. And I, when I was thinking about it, I could have gone back. But you have to be at a point where even being on the show and being unsuccessful getting money has to be good for you. So the publicity helps you. Many people, in fact, get on there for the publicity. But we were at a point where we could not scale up nationally. We were this tiny startup out of Michigan. It really wouldn't have helped us at all to be on the show, either positive or negative, even if we didn't raise the money. So I think, yes, but I think the timing has to be right for us to apply again, for me to apply again.
I know. We'll be cheering for you whenever you're ready for Shark Tank.
Thanks.
Awesome. So when you look back at your journey so far, what is one thing, that you wished you knew and would have told your younger self about?
That is an interesting one. I mean, there's so many lessons I've learned over the last few years, but I think one thing I have learned is to not worry about, I guess, not have fear as much holding you back from the things. Like, what do you have to lose? And I think that mentality I didn't have starting my career. I was a little bit more, I don't know. I would always think twice, thrice before doing anything, saying anything, and so I think that's changed a little bit over time. I finally realized, I don't have that much to lose. It's okay if you speak your mind. It's okay if if you want to do something that's out of the ordinary. So that's something I would definitely tell myself, my younger self.
That's pretty cool. When we look back, it's always, very philosophical, saying like, hey, we should ask for more help. We shouldn't stress ourselves by overthinking, but it's all in retrospect, right?
Yes.
Not in the moment. Awesome. So we have a fun rapid fire round for you. Are you ready for it?
Okay. I don't think I'll ever be, but okay.
So you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following in one word, if you can.
Ooh.
Who's your role model?
Too many to count. Sorry, I have a list of people that I can think right off the bat.
Go for the top three.
Okay. Ashok and Meera Vasudevan, they created Tasty Bite, and they've kind of accomplished already what I've done with with Prayani. Then there is, as South Asian entrepreneur, Kiran Mazumdar Shah, of course. Sarah Blakely, she's been so open about her experiences. And I have to mention my parents in their own way. My dad's work ethic, my mom's just quick on her feet thinking that that I've realized I need as an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. And Kiran Mazumdar Shah is always a role model for South Asians. And I hope to have her on my show at some point in the near future too.
Cool.
What does happiness mean to you?
Happiness, I think being content with where I am and being happy with my choices, but whether bad or good, right? It's still taught me something, and just being content is what it means to me.
How do you look back at success?
Success is very difficult for me to define. Some days I feel successful and some days not at all. I have struggles with that, so let's not go there.
And what do you say to yourself when you have those challenging, dark moments?
I kind of I'm a big believer in kind of visualization, so I tend to visualize the time when I am very successful, and it's worked for me like through school and everything. So I always imagine the far future where everything's rosy. So that always helps.
You bring up a very good point, because when I do my meditation and have this final affirmations before I open my eyes, I look at how do I want to spend this day. And that visualization really helps you feel inspired that you want to do something that's productive for you and for the people around you.
Yeah.
What is one fun thing about Harinee that's exclusive to our Career Startup podcast listeners?
Okay, so this is going to be probably not that fun, I'm not sure, but it's definitely nerdy. My family and I were big Star Trek fans. I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. I've seen the original series about 4 times each episode now, and a good chunk of the Next Generation too.
That's awesome. Does your son love that?
What's that? Yes, we got him into it last year. Yes, so
nice.
I'd already seen it 3 times each, and this is how the 4th time happened, is with him.
It's nice to have little buddies as company for your hobbies.
Yeah.
All right, the last question that I have is, what is your native language, and one word to describe yourself in your native language?
Ooh, my native language is Tamil. I honestly don't know how I know the English word, but I'm not sure how I would describe it in my native language.
Go for it. We'll give it a try. I can help you.
I don't know. So I was going to say gritty, but
That's a tough one.
Aritham, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, it's when you have the perseverance and the grit.
Exactly.
That explains who you are in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's been so wonderful to have you on the show, Harinee, and thanks for sharing your life journey, some of the entrepreneurial challenges, and most important of all, the pivots that you're successfully making. That gives a lot of inspiration to entrepreneurs and people who are watching and listening to the show.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure being here. It's amazing. I enjoyed being, chatting with you about my journey. And I would really encourage everyone to subscribe to the Career Startup Leadership Podcast. It's really inspiring to see, of course, you hear of the Kiran Mazumdar Shaws of the world, but it's inspiring to see everyday South Asian entrepreneurs being highlighted on your show, right? So I thank you so much for doing that and bringing that to the South Asian folks.
Thank you so much, Harinee. But before we let you go, I have two things to share. One is some of our comments from our live listeners as well. We have Aditya who says, thanks for sharing your insights, Harinee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. And we have Satya who says, very interesting and impressive interview, and showcasing the hard work of the entrepreneur is appreciated.
Thanks, Satya.
Thanks, Satya. And Ketiki says, loved your insights. Thank you so much for your authenticity as well.
Thank you, Ketiki.
That's awesome. I know our listeners have a lot of other interesting questions, so feel free to drop them in your comments section. And Harinee, when you get a chance after the episode, feel free to go back and respond to them at your convenience.
Sure.
Now, the second aspect, drum roll for our lucky winner for that free mentoring session. Are you ready for it, Harinee?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So we're going to give it to Ketiki Vaidya, who had a lot of interesting and inspiring questions, and I'm quite sure she'll have a lot more as part of the mentoring session. So Ketiki, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Ketiki. Thank you so much for joining me today. And it's my absolute pleasure. I love mentoring people, and I've had the opportunity to do it with through ZLI with a few students. But it's my absolute pleasure.
Awesome, and congratulations, Ketiki. If you're still on the live show, feel free to drop in a comment so I know that you've had a chance to know that you're the lucky winner, and we'll connect you offline with Harinee so you can grab that free mentoring session. Thank you so much, Harinee. It's been such a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And as a fellow Ross alum, it's always nice to see entrepreneurs succeed, because we all go to business school with dreams of finding our passions or implementing what our passions are. And I'm so glad you've done it so successfully and continue to giving back to the community through your products as well as through mentoring young entrepreneurs too.
Yeah, absolutely, Priyanka, and kudos to you too, how you're taking your path forward. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So Ketiki says, yay, thank you. So congrats again, Ketiki. With that being said, quick reminder to all our live listeners, we have our 12 Days of Christmas giveaway as part of our Christmas spirit. So our first book giveaway is out. So check out my latest post on LinkedIn to get a chance to win that free book from Cynthia Pong on how do you do not stay in your career lane, which is a great book for women of color as well as for other people in the community. And also follow me, Priyanka Komala, as well as our Career Startup Leadership Podcast page on LinkedIn, as we do our countdown until Christmas for our 12 days of free giveaways with an interesting book from our guests who have been showcased on our Career Startup Leadership Podcast show. Until another episode, which is going to happen tomorrow with our guest, Nader, who is a STEM engineer and a mental health and fitness enthusiast. We're going to learn a lot more about his life journey as well. This is your host, Priyanka Komala, signing off from Career Startup Leadership Podcast, a podcast to spotlight world-class Asian entrepreneurs, innovators, and C-suite executives who can inspire you with their candid journey. And do continue to remember to hit that like or subscribe, and do follow us and comment, leave a rating wherever you're watching or hearing our podcast. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day.